So, today we're going to dive into one of the absolute strangest publications from the early 20th century. It's a journal called the Equinox, and let me tell you, when you first crack it open, it is a complete and total puzzle.
And I'm not kidding. Just imagine, you open this serious, academic-looking journal, and what do you find? This. A 10-pound reward, which was a ton of money back then, for anyone who can find a copy with this totally nonsensical little limerick in it. What on earth is going on here? You have to wonder, is this some kind of elaborate joke? A secret code? Or is it just bonkers?
And that's really the big question here, isn't it? This whole journal feels like it was designed on purpose to just confuse you, to provoke you, and to hide whatever it's really about behind this, well, this mask of absurdity. So, come on, let's start peeling back the layers.
I mean, just take a look at the table of contents. It's pure chaos. You've got this beautiful, sublime poetry sitting right next to incredibly dense instructions for magical rituals. You have detailed chronicles of hashish experiences right alongside these absolutely scathing book reviews. It's this wild mix of high art, petty insults, and profound mysticism. It honestly feels like someone took 10 different magazines and accidentally stitched them all together.
Okay, but here's the thing. Underneath all that chaos on the surface, there's actually a surprisingly strict and frankly really ambitious plan. Because this journal, it wasn't just some random collection of weird writings. No, it was a blueprint for a spiritual revolution. And this right here, this was the official motto of the Equinox. And it's the key to understanding the entire project. What they were trying to do was apply the rigorous, step-by-step, methodical process of science to achieve the mind-blowing, transcendent goals of religion. They wanted to make mysticism systematic.
Now, the engine driving this whole thing was a secret society called the Aleister A. And this journal? It was basically their public-facing recruitment poster and training manual all in one. It was their way of announcing to the world, hey, we exist, and laying out the path for anyone who is brave enough to try and follow it. A path to becoming an adept through a whole series of grueling tests and initiations.
And this path was anything but vague. It was all laid out in a document called Liber 13, and it reads like a structured curriculum. You'd start as a probationer, reading the essential texts. Then you'd move up to neophyte through a very specific ritual. Then you'd learn things like Kabbalah and divination as a practicus, and on and on. Every single step is clearly defined, and it's all leading to one ultimate, very specific goal: to attain the knowledge and conversation of your holy guardian angel. It's like a spiritual journey laid out like a university degree.
But, for all of its structure and its step-by-step process, the journal never lost that deep sense of mystery. This little bit of poetry here, it hints that the ultimate prize, this universal key, is something that you can't just talk about. It can't be explained, it can only be experienced, right at the very end of the path.
So, the big question is, how is an initiate actually supposed to achieve all this? How do you go about transforming yourself? Well, the journal offered a pretty controversial toolkit, advocating for methods that really push the boundaries of both the mind and the spirit. The first tool they talked about was the very careful, very deliberate use of consciousness-altering substances. They published this long translation of Baudelaire's Poem of Hashish, and in it, the journal argues that the drug isn't an escape from reality. Far from it. They saw it as a magnifying mirror for your own soul, a tool to examine your own mind in a state of, well, radical honesty, for better or for worse. And they treated this whole experience like a scientific experiment. They even broke down the predictable phases of the hashish journey. According to the text, it starts with this uncontrollable laughter, then moves to very distinct physical sensations, and it all culminates in this state where your senses are just completely supercharged, and the world is perceived through these intense, overwhelming analogies. The second tool was pretty much its polar opposite: ceremonial magic. So while hashish was all about looking inward, ritual magic was about reaching outward. They treated it like a kind of spiritual technology for invoking external divine forces, all with one single incredibly audacious goal: to identify your own self with the Godhead. So, you see, you've got these two very different paths. One uses a drug to magnify what's already inside of you, to see yourself for who you truly are. The other uses these elaborate rituals to call down something from beyond you, to become one with God. But here's the crucial point. Both of these methods, as different as they seem, were aimed at the exact same destination: a radical and totally irreversible transformation of your consciousness. But, this very high-minded spiritual quest, it didn't exactly happen in a peaceful little vacuum. Oh no. The journal was also a chronicle of the very human, very messy world of occult rivalries, personal attacks, and some pretty bitter infight.
And this wasn't just theoretical sparring. In its own Notes of the Semester section, the journal reports on a literal assassination attempt against its founder, Aleister Crowley, by a rival magical group. They call them a gang of soi-disant Rosicrucian swindlers who hired these clumsy thugs to try and take him out. I mean, this was a dangerous game they were playing.
But what is absolutely brilliant, and what you have to love, is what they write next. In the very same column, the journal's own editors take this sarcastic shot at their own leader. After reporting the assassination attempt, they add this incredibly dry remark, basically saying, yeah, we feel bad for the guy who got hurt by mistake, but as for Crowley, he probably had it coming. That just shows an incredible, almost unbelievable capacity for self-mockery.
And wow, their wit was absolutely vicious when they turned it on their enemies. In a review of a book by a rival occultist, A.E. Waite, they just tear him apart. They mock him for exacting recognition, and then they compare him to Arthur Orton, who was a famous con man of the time who pretended to be a long-lost heir. These weren't just book reviews, they were declarations of intellectual war.
So after all that, what are we supposed to make of this thing? You've got the poetry, the spiritual path, the poison, the personal attacks. It all comes together to form something, well, something truly one of a kind.
When it comes right down to it, the Equinox was a contradiction held in this kind of perfect, weird tension. It was a deeply serious spiritual project that absolutely refused to take itself too seriously. It was a systematic guide to the irrational. And above all, it was a deeply human document, filled not just with these divine aspirations, but also with ego and anger and wit. It was, in short, a complete system for personal revolution, warts and all.
And that leaves us with one final nagging question. This journal, it documents a group of people who dedicated their entire life to this single all-consuming quest. They risked their sanity, their reputations, and even their physical safety. And it really forces us to ask ourselves, where exactly is the line between a profound spiritual search and a truly dangerous obsession? That's something to think about.